Hey.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
He did what?
Jackpot, baby!
Ice up, son. Ice up.
That is blasphemous.
You can put it on the board. Yes.
The power rankings, not Pro Football Focus or whatever in the world they call it, not NFL.com, not ESPN, not Stephen A. Smith's, my power rankings. That's right, my power rankings. I always look at these power rankings, and I always think that these people put these absurd lists together just to get some attention. They're like, oh yeah, the Lions are the best team in the league, and everybody's like, that's ridiculous. And it's like, okay, yeah, they put that crazy stuff out there so that you share it with everybody else. And you're like, get a load of this idiot. It gets that publicity out there. But for some real, an honest power rankings, I've put this top 10 list together for you. And, honestly, depending on how much time we have left at the end of this segment, I might kind of tell you the, teams beyond the top 10 here in my book. But number one, yeah, I know the Philadelphia Eagles are 6-0. But I can't help but think that the Buffalo Bills would beat the Eagles in a matchup. And I'm not saying that's guaranteed. I'm not saying the Eagles wouldn't have no shot, because that's not true. You never know until the game is played. But I will say that, at least as of now, I do think the Buffalo Bills are the better team. And it's very close. It is very close. But I have Buffalo Bills. I honestly would say that the Bills and Eagles are probably tied for one. And I know that the Bills have one loss and the Eagles have none. But I will say that the Bills, I have them as 1 and the Eagles as 2. I have the Chiefs as 3. And only because, they kept it close with the Bills when they lost, right? They beat the Niners, who everybody's kind of jumping on the bandwagon there. I don't know. Anytime you have Patrick Mahomes and that team, yeah, they're going to be pretty good. So they're going to be up there, and they've been playing some pretty good football as of late. The Minnesota Vikings I have at number 4. They're 5-1. And as long as they have games at 1 o'clock Eastern, and as long as they have 1 o'clock games, yeah, they're going to be good. As soon as you put him in prime time, that drops to like 15 or 20. But I think, honestly, Kirk Cousins is finally putting together a very, very good season. I'm not saying that he was terrible in other years, but this is by far his best season in quite a while. And it also helps when you have Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook and a pretty good defense as well. But the Minnesota Vikings are looking pretty good, and I honestly think they are, without a doubt, the front runners to win the NFC North. Number 5, New York Giants at 6-1. I will say this. I had a tough time coming up with teams after 4, right? I was like, number 5, you can make an argument for pretty much a handful of teams. You can make an argument for that should be number 5. And the Giants are 6-1, but you look at their wins, and it's kind of funny to say this, but at 6-1, I'm still not convinced by the New York Giants. They were behind early against the Jaguars. They came back late and beat Jacksonville by 1 possession. They beat Aaron Rodgers and the Packers a couple weeks ago in London, only because Aaron Rodgers just didn't get rid of the ball in time, a couple fumbles. They win the game there thanks to, I'll give them credit on the defensive end, but you could definitely, one thing goes a different way and the Giants lose that game. Same thing with the Baltimore Ravens loss to the Giants last week in week 6. If the Ravens in the second half don't turn the ball over on their own 30-yard line in 2 consecutive drives in the second half, in the fourth quarter, the Giants most likely don't win that game. So you have 3 games right there that could arguably go, are 1 possession away from going the other way, and all of a sudden a 6-1 record is now a 3-4 record. That is quite, and that's like kind of worst case scenario. That is kind of eye opening. Number 6, Dallas Cowboys. I think with Dak Prescott back, if he can continue to play the way he did against the Detroit Lions last week, if he continues to play like that, and I'm not saying he will, I'm not saying that's guaranteed, as you know, not every team is the Detroit Lions, but if that is a sign of what's to come from Dak Prescott for the rest of the season, you know, and their other receivers, their backup, not backup, but you know, the supporting cast, I like to call them on teams. The, you know, second and third options are getting healthy. Dalton Schultz is getting healthy. That and partner that with a strong defense. You know, the Dallas probably could use some help in the secondary for sure, but a strong linebacker and front seven core paired with a, you know, an offense that's getting healthy, they're looking good, and it kind of pains me to say that a little bit, but they are. Let's not kid ourselves. They are looking decent. I have the Miami Dolphins at number 7, and I know they're 4-3, but they do have Tua back. They have a great running back room. They have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and if they trade Gesicki, they could get somebody else for him and really complete things a little bit. As that's the rumor right now. Their defense is serviceable. Their defense is good enough to get the job done. And even in those games without Tua and without Bridgewater, their defense still kept them in it, right? I mean, their defense didn't just let them get blown out. And I think with Tua back, they could be right back on track to play just as well as they did when they had him in the first quarter of the season. Number 8, I have the Baltimore Ravens, because just as weird as it sounds at them being 4-3 and them being at number 8, you could really make an argument that they should be 7-0. And the Ravens are a perfect example of what I was talking about with the Giants, where, you know, you say, oh, with the Giants, you know, one or two things go a different way in 3 games, and instead of being 6-1, they're 4-3 or they're 3-4. That is the Ravens took that from being a possibility, and the Ravens have made that a reality. If the Ravens didn't go for it, go for 2 in those, and go for it on 4th down in those Bills and Dolphins games, they win those games, and as I mentioned before, if they don't turn the ball over on their own side of the field on 2 consecutive drives against the Giants, they probably win that game too, and all of a sudden they're 7-0. Yeah, it's frustrating. So it's just funny because at the end of the day, yep, they're winning the division still somehow, and if they can just be smart and make smart decisions, they are a good team, and they are a division-winning team, and they could possibly maybe make a little bit of noise in the playoffs. But the problem is that they won't make smart decisions. That's just not who they are, and they never are going to be as long as they have Harbaugh and Roman at the forefront of the coaching staff. Number 9, the New York Jets. They are 5-2. They are definitely the surprise team of the year at this point. And I understand that they're 5-2. And you can make an argument that they should be above the Ravens and Dolphins, but they're another team where I look at them and they haven't exactly played the best teams to be 5-2. They beat the Steelers. Okay, so what? They beat the Dolphins without Tua, and I believe they even didn't have Bridgewater for most of that game in the Jets game against the Dolphins, so they win that game. Great. You beat the struggling Packers. Fine. So what? You beat the Broncos, who didn't have Russell Wilson starting. So what? They are unproven. And sure, I mean, it's great for them to be 5-2, but at the end of the day, there's nothing that I can look at and say, oh my goodness, they've beat every single great team in the league this year. This is not the case. And then finally, last but not least, number 10, the Cincinnati Bengals round out my top 10 power rankings as they're 4-3. They're right up there in the AFC North division race. They beat the Falcons last week. I don't think I put too much on that win, but Burrow did seem to kind of get things figured out somewhat, and the Bengals have slowly been improving week to week after a pretty rough start for them. AFC NFC division winners, I've got the Bills winning the East, the Ravens winning the North, the Titans as of right now winning the South, and the Chiefs winning